All right, I think we will go ahead and start. So welcome everybody. We're glad to have some of our incoming students here for the webinar today. Congratulations to everyone for being accepted to the School of Social Work. We're looking forward to working with you all throughout the year. So this is a presentation that's being done by our Office of Global Activities. And I'm gonna have everybody that'll be presenting, introduce themselves here. So I'm Katie Lopez. I'm the director of our Office of Global Activities. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also a graduate of our School of Social Work. So I graduated from our program in 2010. Kaylee, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Kaylee Henderson. I'm the Global Opportunities Coordinator in the Office of Global Activities, and I also use she, her pronouns.
Hi, my name is Sadia Abshara. I also use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a current international student in the MSW program, and I also work at the Office of Global Activities, and it's nice to meet all of you.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for introducing themselves. You all right now are muted, and so I think Zoom has become something we're often using in different areas or typical video conference technology, but just wanted to go over some kind of housekeeping things. If you do have questions during the presentation as we're going through, please go ahead and put those in the chat. The three of us will take turns responding to those during the presentation if we can, or we may hold some of those questions to the end and address them there. But definitely you don't have to hold on to your questions to the end. Feel free to put them in the chat box as they come up. So you can see where you're muted right now and then where you can click on the chat feature. And then we'll also have the slides and presentation. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded because we know not everyone would be available at this particular day and time. So Sadia will be sending out an email to everybody, to the group afterwards, so that you have the slides, so you can click on some of the links as well as the recording if you want to go back, or for those that weren't able to join. And then we will at the end have a chance for you all to introduce yourselves. So we hope if you're in a spot where you can, that you'll be willing to turn on your camera, unmute yourself and say hi, so that we can start getting to know each other as you get ready for this fall semester. And with that, I'm going to jump into the agenda. So for today, we're going to go over a little bit about the timeline between now and when the program starts in the end of August. We'll touch on some COVID-19 updates in terms of what's happening on campus, where you can find information with the latest information. And I'll talk a little bit about academics. So the course schedule, registering for courses, and field. Then we'll turn it over. Sadia will talk about financial aid and some of the arrival logistics. Kaylee's going to talk about some, I may have this wrong, who's talking about which part, but Kaylee and Sadia will be talking about arrival logistics and life in Ann Arbor. And then we'll facilitate some introductions and do question and answer. So there will be some time at the end too, if you have questions that you don't want to chat because they're more complicated or specific to your situation, we'll definitely open it up at the end. So with that, I will jump into the timeline. So one of the most important things to do, which you probably have been doing because you're logged on here, is making sure that you're checking your U of M email. So in the start of the admissions process, we had a personal email address for you that you were being communicated with. But at this point, for most students that are matriculated and enrolled, the university has switched over to using your University of Michigan email address. So you'll be getting important notifications all summer long about different things that you should be, getting ready for, like registration, registering for field, or applying for field, those types of things. If you feel that you might be exempt from some of our essential courses, so the essential courses are our foundation courses. So these would be for students that are in our 60 credit hour program. So if you already have a BSW degree or you're in the master track, this wouldn't apply to you. But to students that will be taking our essential courses, if you took a research course in undergrad and you think that that might exempt you from our research course, during the summer would be the time that you would be submitting petitions to be exempt from essential courses. So definitely be working on that. You'll either already have gotten or will soon be getting a notification about the SEED orientation toolkit. So there's a bunch of things online that students can review to learn about the different offices, different opportunities that are available at the School of Social Work. And this was something that came out of requests from students that were hoping for more kind of curated content ahead of time that they could go through to learn more about the school. So it's something that's self-paced, it's not required, but I would suggest that you spend some time clicking through some of those, clicking on the things that interest you, and you can learn more through some videos and website links. We also have on campus, so this is not within the School of Social Work, this serves the entire campus community. We have the English Language Institute, or what we call ELI, and ELI provides a lot of resources for folks on campus. And so one of the things that they do is they do have an English Language Institute, which may be something that you're interested in. So we've included a link here that you could click on and get more information. Some students plan on arriving early to campus and participating in ELI Summer Institute, or students may take advantage of some of the other offerings, whether it's workshops or courses that are offered by the English Language Institute throughout the term. So wanted to put that up there. There also later this month, so in about 2 weeks, will be a course planning webinar. You'll be receiving more information about that, and we've included the link to register for that. That's really important. So either you're able to attend synchronously on the day of that webinar, or if you're not able to, we would highly encourage you to watch the recording of it, because reasonably, you all are really interested in registering for courses. What does that look like? How do I go through the process? And so the course planning webinar will cover a lot of that important information. And it is something you want to make sure that you don't miss, because you don't want to miss your registration appointment. So I've got another slide in a bit that I'll talk more about registering for classes, but that will happen in July. We also have, in addition to the English Language Institute on campus, we have the International Center. And so most of you, if you are getting your visa is sponsored by the U of M, the International Center has been the one that you've been working with along with Michelle Gordon to get your I-20s or your DS 2019s, depending on what type of visa you're on. They also run a very extensive summer orientation. So it's about 2 weeks long typically, and they have various sessions on all kinds of topics, things like banking in the US, or, obtaining a car or a driver's license if you're interested in that, how to make friends in the US, the difference between kind of academic instruction in the US versus other contexts. And most of the sessions are co-presented by International Center staff as well as current international students. So they're really rich different workshops or events that you can participate in, and many of them do repeat. So they may be offering the How to Bank in Ann Arbor session twice, but there would also be recordings of those. So you'll be getting more information directly from the International Center about that, but that's definitely something to look at and keep an eye out for. Flag some of the sessions you're most interested in. It's many of the questions that we get from students. The International Center already has a session on them, so really taking advantage of those rich offerings. On August 22nd, there will be an international student orientation that's facilitated by our office as well as the Office of Student Services. So you'll be getting more information about that, but that's your first opportunity to get together in person. And so we largely anticipate that being an in-person event for folks. We will do a recording if there's folks that for some reason can't attend. But I think that students in the past have really enjoyed that, to have a chance to get together a little sooner, get some information about resources before then our SEED orientation week starts. So orientation week is August 23 through 26. So that's Tuesday through Friday. There's a variety of activities. You'll be getting more information about what those sessions look like. And there will be some of that content that's in person and some of it that's done via Zoom. But classes don't start till August 29th, but you really, as an incoming student, your obligations start as of August 22nd. And so making plans to attend the International Student Orientation as well as the SEED Week orientation. Next, just wanted to touch on some COVID updates. And I've included a couple of links here. So the International Center has updates about what's going on specific for international students. So there's information here as it might relate to your visa status or other things that are going on. U of M and the School of Social Work similarly have COVID-19 update pages, and those are the places to find the most up-to-date policies. As of now, and this is continuing and has been the case since last fall, we're planning for an in-person public health informed fall semester. And what that means is that most classes will either be in person or a hybrid, meaning some in person and some online sessions, with the School of Social Work offering a few sections of classes completely online for incoming students. And given US guidance right now for visa holders for international students, students can take a combination of hybrid, in-person and online courses. If you're a new student that's coming now, you can't be only in online courses, but quite honestly, I don't know that you could make a semester worth of only online courses because most courses are in person and in hybrid format. So wanted to make you aware of that. But some of the guidance is different. Previously, before the pandemic, there were very limited numbers of online courses that international students could take, and there is more flexibility that's been extended again for this 2022-2023 school year that would allow students to be taking a mix of courses. It is important that at least one of your classes is either in person or hybrid. You can't be fully online as a new incoming student. The other thing, this was something that we implemented last year, and I'm not sure that it is as important necessarily this year, is with the embassies and consulates opening back up after being closed for a while for COVID. Some international students coming in weren't sure if they were going to be able to get visa appointments. And so we had the ability for students up until August 15th to request a deferral. So if it looks like for some reason you might not be able to come given the COVID situation in your country, the embassy or consulate appointments, other reasons, you do have until August 15th to request a deferral to, instead of starting for fall 2022, to start for fall 2023. So we've included that information there. I think talking with Michelle Gorton, most of you have been able to secure visa appointments at this point. So I'm not sure that this is the same kind of situation it was last year, but we wanted to mention it and provide these steps for you. As I mentioned already, June 13th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time is when the webinar will be about registering for classes. So again, as I've already mentioned, you do need to click on the link to register. So it's a Zoom webinar. You'll need to register for it. If you can attend synchronously, if this time works for you, that's great. But we also realize for those of you that are 12 hours ahead of us, this is 3 a.m., 4 a.m. your time. So there will be a recording, but we would highly recommend that you watch it because you'll want to have that information about making your class schedule. There are also some resources I mentioned from the International Center. So again, you'll be getting information from them directly. They do have a pre-departure orientation for international students you'll be getting more information about, as well as a couple of other just documents that they've put together. So pre-arrival guide for international students and a welcome booklet as well. So again, we'll be sharing these slides through email with the recording at the end, so you can click on all of these links and view the wealth of information that the International Center has compiled. Pre-arrival resources from the School of Social Work. Again, continue to monitor your University of Michigan email address because you'll be getting information about this. But there's an admitted student resources page where you'll be directed to often places where you can, click the link to sign up for the course planning webinar. There's important information for international students. And then we do maintain our own international student web pages. And I know Sadia has been recently working to update and refresh some of the content on those, making sure the links are active. And so these are, again, other resources we just want to direct you to as you're coming in. So lots of information has been put online. That being said, if you're not finding an answer to a question that you have, or something isn't clear or a link isn't working, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. Kaylee, can you put our email address for our office in the chat box so that everyone has that? Thanks. Academic platforms that are important to use. Again, the U of M email account is really important. That's where you'll receive official communication from the School of Social Work and from the university. It is a Gmail account, and so you'll have access to that the entire time you're a student. We have also have something that's called Wolverine Access, which is a website that includes a lot of different information and functionality for students. So this is the place where you register for classes. It's a place where you could view your financial aid documents, where your class schedule will be available. If you work on campus, it would be a place where you, could set up information to have your payment submitted to a bank account that you have on file. So there's a lot of functionality on Wolverine Access that you'll be learning more about. And then finally, we use Canvas. And so Canvas is a course management website. If students have used, I think, Moodle, Blackboard, or other examples of course management sites. And so we have a student guide for using Canvas. And this is a picture of what Canvas looks like. So you can see you would have the different courses that are available to you. And then when you click on a course, that's where often faculty are uploading their syllabus, where they'll have you upload assignments. There may be chat or discussion board functionalities that you might engage in. If there are readings or assignments that there are PDFs for, those things will be stored here. So most every course you'll be in at the School of Social Work will have a Canvas course with it where you'll be engaging with the faculty. Some use it more widely than others, but almost everybody uses it at least in some way, shape, or form to kind of be the gathering place of information for your classes. And we've actually developed a course a Canvas course for incoming international students. And so Sadia will be sending a link when the recording of this is ready, and to send out the slides, she'll be inviting you to this Canvas course that's specifically for international students. So I'm going to click on it and just show you what it looks like. So when you log in, should have logged in this morning, but you'll have to use your U of M password and unique name to log in. And once you do, you'll also have to do the two-factor if you haven't done that already for the day. But you will be brought to this welcome landing page. And then we have some different modules that are set up with information that might be of interest to you. So this course was developed based on feedback from international students that wanted some more information about different things before they started the program. So there's different short videos on things like cultural humility. There's a historical overview, which I think students have been interested in, trying to understand kind of social welfare issues within the United States. Our system is complex and piecemeal and doesn't make a lot of sense. And so I think often students that are not familiar with that context are interested here. None of this is required, but it does offer you a chance to, first of all, see what a Canvas course looks like, to start interacting with them, and then to click on some of these and see, what the information here that is provided. And so you can choose how much of this you go through, but it is something that previous international students requested. You'll see most of the videos are pretty short. They're maybe 10 minutes at the longest, and that's a resource that you'll be getting access to shortly. As I mentioned, course registration, the webinar will be in June 13th about that. Then you'll start getting your registration appointments. So every student is given an appointment time in which they register for their classes via Wolverine Access. They'll be on Wolverine Access. You'll be able to view your appointment time there. And I would imagine that that'll happen by the end of this month. And then starting in July, your registration appointments will come up, and that's the point when you will register for your classes. So I'm not going to go into too much more detail about that. Again, make sure you're checking your U of M email that you either attend or watch the webinar. And finally, I'd say I just strongly encourage you to register at your appointment time. So if your appointment time is, Monday morning at 8 a.m., that's the first time that you can register. You can also register any point after that time, but the longer you wait, the more classes will be filled up. And so if at all possible, hopefully with the time zone difference, it'll work out for you. But if you can register when your appointment is, you'll have the best shot at having the most spots open in courses that you're interested in. Real quickly, I'm just going to touch on the academic schedules for the different students in our program and what it looks like. So 16-month students are doing 60 credits in the program, and you can see they're pretty evenly spaced out between the 4 semesters. Students start with just doing coursework in the 16-month track, and they do not have any field hours. And then in the last 3 semesters, you'll be doing field at one agency over those 3 semesters. And so It'll look like 2 days a week in your foundation, your first semester of field. And then for the second 2 semesters, you'll be working 3 days a week with your agency. And so you'll see that the number of course credits that you're taking is reduced to accommodate for your field schedule. So that's what a 16-month student looks like. 20-month students are pretty similar. It's just a different, you're just not in classes in spring, summer terms. So you're doing a fall, winter, the spring, summer is completely off, and then you'd come back for another fall, winter. So things again look the same in terms of how the credits are spread out. No field in that first semester, then 2 days a week, your first semester of field, and then followed by 2 semesters of 3 days. 20-month students also have 1 field placement the whole time. So you'll start with your field organization, you'll take a break over spring, summer, and then you'll return to them for your final 2 semesters. We also have advanced standing. So for those that have a BSW degree, you're only taking 45 credits, and you can see how those credits are spread out again pretty evenly over the 3 semesters. These students are in field all 3 semesters because you already have the foundation of social work kind of essential courses that you've done through your bachelor's degree. And so these students are in field at the same agency for all 3 semesters, 2 days a week. And then finally, we have the master track certificate. So students that came in and completed the essential coursework already through the master track will be here for 3 semesters. They will be starting field right away because they have completed the essential coursework or the foundation coursework before they come to campus. And so their field schedule is similar in that they start out 2 days a week and then move to 3 days a week. Again, the 15, 16, or 14 credits over those 3 semesters. So just wanted to touch on that, as sometimes students have question about what is class, when is field, how does the schedule kind of line up? Which does bring us to field. And so with field, there was a field placement recording that happened already. Hopefully you attended it or were able to view that. If you are, most students that are incoming in the 16-month and 20-month track will not apply for field until October because they don't start field until January. But master track or advanced standing students or students in some of our special programs may already need to be starting for a fall field placement. And there's a field or a web page that the field office has put together specifically with information for international students, because we know sometimes there's questions around that. And finally, I would just encourage you to really be in communication with the Office of Field Education. If you have any questions, the field faculty are more than willing to help you. And so definitely they have office hours. You can communicate with them through email to set up a meeting, but would highly encourage that. So it looks like we have one person with a question. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? All right, well, if you want to go ahead and put your question in chat, or if you have a chance to unmute yourself, go ahead. But we're happy to answer any questions about field or the academic schedule either now or towards the end. Last, I just want to touch on curricular practical training, so CPT. So all students that are in the program have to do field, and field does require authorization for your visa status through what's called curricular practical training, or CPT. So this has to be granted every semester for you that you're doing field, that you have turned in paperwork to be authorized to do your field placement, this academic internship with the organization. And the School of Social Work has streamlined an approach working with our field office to do this. So you have to make sure that this CPT authorization has happened before you can start field, but there will be a lot of information provided to you around what it is that you need to do, the letter that you'll get from your field organization. There's no cost to this, but it is important that this is something that's taken care of every semester. Sadi, I don't know if you want to talk about how CPT was for you. Was it a pretty easy process? Did you have to wait a few days before you could start your field placement?
Yeah, so in my case, I got my field placement pretty early. I submitted my application on time, and I was lucky in that the first agency that I interviewed with was a good match. So I was able to submit my paperwork, and that process was really easy. The School of Social Work does a really good job of like preparing you and giving you all the information that you need to submit your CPT application and helping you get the documents. And then you just have to submit them and wait a couple of weeks to hear back and get your authorization. So in my case, I got my authorization ahead of time and was able to start. However, it was kind of over winter break, so I did have to follow up a bit with the International Center because like they had sent an email and I didn't receive it, but it ended up working itself out. So as long as you submit your documents on time and you follow up as needed, it should be a pretty straightforward process. And once that time comes, you're going to get a very clear email from the School of Social Work that has like infographic about everything that you need to do step by step, all the documents that you need. So hopefully it should be a smooth process.
Yeah, so we just wanted to highlight that. I think sometimes students have some anxiety around it. I think the documents that Sadia mentioned, actually one of our former international students that worked in our office developed that, wanting to make sure that it was really clear kind of what the steps were. And so that's something that all students will go through during all 3 semesters that they're in their field placement. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sadia.
So a question that we get frequently and a question that I had a lot when I was starting the program was regarding financial aid, because there is some information about the website that specifies that there are some types of financial aid that international students are eligible for, whereas there are other types of aid that we're not eligible for. So we just thought we would address this in the webinar to sort of clarify what these types of aid that we are eligible or not eligible for are and why. So international students are eligible for merit-based scholarship aid from the School of Social Work. And merit-based aid basically means that this will be based on your grades, your professional experiences, kind of like the quality of your application. So this isn't based on your financial need, it's more based on like an evaluation of your application. And the way that you apply for this aid is just when you are submitting your initial application to the School of Social Work, you can also submit a financial aid application where you just fill in some information about yourself. And after you submit that, then that's kind of the only thing that you need to do to be considered for merit-based scholarship aid. International students are also eligible to apply for special programs. So these special programs are kind of related to different pathways within the school or different types of activities that you would do within the school. And for these, you would also have applied by now for them, but we just thought we'd address them. Usually you apply at the time of your application or very soon after that. So these, like, you get a certain amount of funding, but there are also certain requirements attached to these programs, like certain courses that you have to take or related to the type of field placement that you end up doing. We're also eligible to apply for most donor-funded scholarships that are available to all MSW students. And these also require separate applications. So these are usually funded by external donors. So they're not like from the School of Social Work or from the state. These are funded by donors, and these also usually have certain requirements that are set by the donors. And once these applications for these scholarships are open, you're going to get an email from the School of Social Work notifying you of them. Another thing that international students are eligible for is the International Center Emergency Fund. So this fund is for students who have started their programs, and if a certain event happens in their lives or a certain emergency occurs, then they are able to apply for this fund from the International Center. And these are emergencies that would really impact the students' ability to really continue with their academic program as they had already planned. So for example, we hope no one ends up needing this type of funding, but it's related to kind of like medical emergencies or the death of a family member or someone who is helping you meet the financial requirements for the programs. Let me just share my screen. Oh, okay, so Katie is sharing. Never mind.
I've got it. Are you able to see the slides again?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. Yeah.
It's okay.
I have a timer and I wasn't moving enough and it turned off. So there we go.
Okay, if we can go to the previous slide though. Yeah, so those were kind of the types of aid that we're eligible for. Now, for the types of aid that we're not eligible for, so we are in general not eligible for need-based financial aid for different reasons. So the need-based financial aid that's coming from the state or from the federal government, we're not eligible for it because that's kind of reserved for citizens and other categories. So international students are not included in that type of aid. Another type of need-based aid, which we're not eligible for, is the Michigan Scholarships and Opportunity Grants. These are also need-based awards that are distributed through the School of Social Work. Now, the reason we're not eligible for these types of aid is that so there was a process that involved the School of Social Work faculty, staff, and students, and they kind of set a set of principles for how this type of need-based aid should be distributed. And because as international students, we have to submit the affidavit of financial support, which I think all of you are familiar with at this point. The affidavit of financial support is kind of proof that we have sufficient funds to complete our program, which we have to submit in order to get our I-20 and be able to get our visas. When we submit that, we're showing that we have sufficient funds to complete the program, which basically means that we might not have as much need as some other students who truly don't have these funds. So that's a reason why we are not eligible for the Michigan Scholarships and the Opportunity Grants, because by submitting the affidavit of financial support, even though like things might change, but it basically shows that at the time that we were applying, we had sufficient funds to complete the program. So we might not have as much need. And we're also not eligible for some of the donor-funded scholarships that have citizenship requirements. So some of these donor-funded scholarships, like they specify that you have to be a resident of a certain area, and this might just be related to who the donor is and what type of student that they want to fund. So for some of them, we wouldn't be able to apply, but those are pretty limited. For the most part, these donor-funded scholarships don't tend to have citizenship requirements. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And then these are some web pages that we thought might be helpful. So you're going to get the slides and be able to look through these and go through these links, as Katie already mentioned. So there's the School of Social Work has a webpage about financial aid information for international students that kind of clarifies some of the things that we just talked about. There's also the webpage for the MSW program grants and scholarships that lists some of these external donor-funded scholarships and some of the special programs if you're interested in learning more about them. It also lists some scholarships that you apply to just externally, not through the School of Social Work. So you might be interested in going through those and checking some of those deadlines and going to the corresponding links in case there's one that you would be eligible for that has a deadline coming up soon. This would be something that we recommend you look through. And then at the university more broadly, there's a page for financial aid for international students that also further explains some of these things. And that's pretty much it for my financial aid.
Great, thanks, Saria. So to kick off my portion of the presentation, I just want to give a brief overview of the School of Social Work building. Hopefully you all will have the chance to kind of explore it and see it for yourselves though once you're here in the fall. So the School of Social Work building is a 5-level building that's situated on the corners of South and East University Avenue on U of M Central Campus. And if you enter from the street or from the main entrance, which is pictured here on the left, you'll enter on the main or the first level of the building. There's also a lower level, which is pictured on the right, and it has a really beautiful open study space. And then there are also second, third, and fourth levels where you'll find different classroom and office spaces. Our office is on the 3rd floor, and thank you. And the building is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Next slide, please. So pictured here is what we call your M card. So your M card is essentially just your official university ID card, and this can grant you access to buildings. It allows you to also ride local buses for free, and it can even get you some discounts at local businesses. The webpage that's linked here has some instructions on how you can submit a photo to get your M card created for you before you arrive in the fall. So most of you will likely fly into the Detroit Metropolitan Airport, or DTW for short. And this also happens to be the closest airport located near Ann Arbor. And you have quite a few transportation options getting from DTW to Ann Arbor, including Uber, Lyft, and taxi, but the Michigan Flyer is a unique option that you have. It's a bus service that runs directly from the Detroit airport to the main bus transit center in Ann Arbor in downtown. So that's also an option, but of course, if you have them, you're also welcome to sort of leverage your networks that you have in the area and have someone come pick you up from the airport as well. So continuing with transportation, public transportation in Ann Arbor is likely not as developed as it is wherever you are coming from, but we do have quite a few options in Ann Arbor. One of them being the blue buses, as we call them. These are university buses that connect the three main campuses at U of M, so the Central, North, and South campuses. These are free for all students to ride. The ride is also the local bus system connecting Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. This is also free to ride if you use your M card, like I mentioned. So you just swipe it when you board the bus and it allows you to ride for free. D2A2 is a newer bus system. It's a commuter bus system that connects Detroit and Ann Arbor. It runs about every hour, I think, and it runs 16 hours a day during the week. This is a great option if your field placement ends up being in Detroit, which is certainly a possibility. And of course, rideshare and taxis are also an option for transportation. So if you plan to rent or buy a car during your time in Ann Arbor, you will obviously want to consider parking. We have two main options for parking on or near campus. The first is commuter parking, or the Park and Ride program. This is offered by the Ride, which is the same local bus system that we have in Ann Arbor. So I personally use this system. I live in Ypsilanti and have to commute to Ann Arbor each day for work. I choose this because parking is quite expensive and pretty limited on campus. So each day I'm able to drive to a close bus stop or a Park and Ride bus stop. I park my car there and then I board the bus that then takes me to Ann Arbor. And again, this is all completely free, but if you are interested in purchasing a parking permit to park closer to campus, you can click on the links that are included in this slide here. And with that, I will hand it back over to Sadia.
So in terms of housing, you have a few options. So most students rent apartments in Ann Arbor, or as Kelly mentioned, in Ypsilanti, which is the neighboring city. Students who choose to rent in Ypsilanti, rents in Ypsilanti tend to be a bit more affordable than rent in Ann Arbor, but that obviously introduces the commute. So usually students who end up living in Ypsilanti either have their own cars or have someone that they can carpool with, or they live in certain areas of Ypsilanti that the bus lines can reach. So a lot of international students end up opting to stay in Ann Arbor just because a lot of us don't end up getting a car. You have different options for housing. So first, you have graduate and family housing that is through U of M. So not all universities offer graduate housing, but U of M happens to offer graduate housing. And you have kind of two options for graduate housing within the U of M housing. So those are the Northwood Community Housing and Munger Graduate Residences. So as Kaylee mentioned, we have the U of M campus is kind of divided into North, Central, and South Campus. The School of Social Work is in Central Campus, and that's where the Munger residences are, whereas Northwood is on North Campus, which is just like a bus ride away. So in the Northwood Community Housing, you kind of have the option to live alone, have your own studio apartment, or live with a roommate, or live with your family. If your family are happening to come with you, they have options to rent like townhouses. Whereas in Munger, you kind of live in shared living arrangements. So it would be you and I think 7 other roommates. You each have like your own room and bathroom, I believe. And then you have shared living and kitchen spaces. I personally live in Northwood. I've found it to be convenient to get to the School of Social Work easily, even though it's not technically on central campus. It is just a bus ride away, and there are quite a few bus stops like within where the Northwood housing is located to make it convenient for students who live there. But you do need to keep in mind that graduate housing options, they tend to fill up quickly. So we would recommend that if you know that you are coming to campus on fall, you're not planning on deferring, and you know that you want to try to live on campus, we would encourage you to reach out to M Housing as soon as you can to try to book your spot. We also have something called the School of Social Work Roommate Finder, and this is a webpage on the School of Social Work's website where current students can make postings. So for example, let's say they live in a 2-bedroom house and their roommate has graduated and is moving out and they're looking for a new roommate, they can make postings there. And then you can connect with them and get more information and see if it's a good match. So this is a good option if you don't want to or are not able to get on-campus housing and want to live with someone who's at the School of Social Work. So this is a good option that you can check out. You can also live off campus as well. So just in apartments around Ann Arbor. The U of M has a website for off-campus housing where they list some apartments that are near or around campus that are available. So that's something that you can definitely check out, or you can look for off-campus options through Craigslist, Facebook groups, or some websites like apartments.com and so on. And Student Legal Services provide support, assistance, and representation in housing matters to students. So even if you are planning on living off campus, if you want someone to help you review your lease, or if you end up having like a dispute with your landlord and you want support, Student Legal Services offers support in those situations, which is incredibly helpful for international students because you're not as familiar with the area. So that's why I ended up opting to get on-campus housing, just because I thought that would be less stressful. But it is great that there is Student Legal Services in case you don't want to, or they already fill up. Then you have support in those situations that might be a bit different when you're coming to a new country. An important note is that you're required to update your address in Wolverine Access within 10 days of any address change while you are in F1 or J1 status. So once you move here, within 10 days of getting here, you do have to update your address. If you end up changing your apartment, you do have to update it again, just so that you keep on top of things for maintaining your legal immigration status. Next slide, please.
Sadia, there was a question in the chat. I don't know if you remember this, but one of the participants was asking about how long it takes after you apply to hear back. Do you remember for your experience for campus housing?
Honestly, I don't remember exactly how long it took. I know it wasn't within a couple of days. Like I think it took, I think maybe a couple of weeks before I heard back. But I was also like I accepted my offer a bit later, so I was just kind of bombarding them with emails being like, hi, are there spots open? Hi, can I apply? So I'm not sure what the time frame usually looks like if you apply earlier or later than I did, but it's not within a couple of days. So if you already applied but you haven't heard back and it's only been a few days, that's okay. That doesn't mean that there aren't any spots available, but if it's been a couple of weeks, you might want to reach out again and just prompt them, because this is a busy time. So reaching out can never hurt.
Great, thanks.
And then the next thing is some helpful links. So as Katie already mentioned, the International Center is a really great resource for international students. And if you check on their website, they have a ton of information about all sorts of things, ranging from like how to get a cell line, banking here, how to get a Michigan driver's license, health insurance, childcare, social events. So they have a ton of resources that are helpful when you're stepping into this brand new context. And they also have the summer orientation, which Katie already mentioned, and that has like a bunch of events. Some of them are peer-led, so other international students hold some of these events. Some of them are social events. Usually in August, they tend to have some in-person ones if you want to start to meet people, and this is not restricted to the School of Social Work. It's just across campus. So we highly encourage you to look through the website and to be able to access some of those resources. If you can go to the next slide. Okay, some other helpful links. So if there is GRIN, which is the Graduate Raham International newsletter. So this is a student-led organization that aims to provide support for all international graduate students at the University of Michigan more broadly. So the School of Social Work isn't part of the Raham graduate section of U of M, but students are still welcome to sign up for the newsletter and join the activities that GRIN puts up. So they provide a lot of information about opportunities that are relevant for international students. So things like fellowships, scholarships, social events, professional events. So you can sign up for their newsletter so you can always stay updated for these events. And that way you can learn about opportunities that are relevant to you, but also connect to other international students within and even outside of the School of Social Work. You can also stay kind of tuned in by following the U of M social media platforms. So there is a Facebook, there's a Twitter, the School of Social Work also has a Facebook page. So that's a good place for you to be able to have updates. And you can also become involved through different things. So I know that coming to a brand new country and starting a graduate program is stressful, and you might not be sure about how much time you have to be engaged in some of these activities. But when you get here and you start to get into the flow of things, I do highly encourage you to try to be engaged, because a big part of your graduate school experience isn't just your coursework and your fieldwork. It is also kind of the connections that you make and the experiences that you have with other students who are here, and also with faculty members and different departments at the school, and those can be extremely enriching. So the School of Social Work has a bunch of student organizations that you can sign up for. You can either sign up to be a member, or you can sign up to be on the board, and they all put on a variety of events throughout the year. And some of these organizations are kind of related to different identities. So for example, like the Queer Advocacy Coalition or the AAPI Coalition, and some of them are more related to certain interests. So there's a student organization for MSW students who are interested in doing school social work, or students who are interested in things related to mindfulness, for example. So these are all ways that you can connect with people who have similar interests to you, or who share similar identities to you, or you can talk through things that you're experiencing and kind of help put together events that are interesting to you and that you would want to engage in. You can also visit the Center for Campus Involvement's website. And this is basically a student-focused department that serves both undergraduate and graduate students and puts together programs and events kind of for a variety of different purposes. So some of them are social events, some of them are kind of leadership opportunities, and they also offer a lot of information about student organizations outside of the School of Social Work that you might be interested in engaging in. There's also Maze pages, which has a list of those student organizations that you might be interested in that are outside of the School of Social Work, so across the school more broadly. You can also visit the website for the University Musical Society, and that's where you can get some information about what musical performances are being put on across campus. So some of those are by students who are in the programs that are related to music through U of M. Some of them are artists that are visiting campus and performing. So that's a really interesting thing to check out if you're really interested in music and different types of it. And of course, you can visit the U of M official athletics site if you're interested in getting football tickets or basketball tickets, or watching the gymnastics team. So any sporting events that are being put on campus. That's where you can get more information about how to either engage in student athletics, or kind of attend those events and be able to watch them. And now here are some tips from current students and alumni. So something that the OGA does is we send out a survey to international students every year. And in the survey, we have a section that says, like, what are some things that you would want incoming students to know? So we pulled from that section to give you some kind of tips that a bunch of different current international students would have wanted to know when they were starting the program. So first is try to get to know other international students and domestic students to form your own support network. It can be daunting to come to a place where none of your friends and family are, it can be a bit lonely if you don't try to reach out and start to form connections, which is why we, for example, really encourage you to come to the international student orientation in person, because then you'll get to meet a bunch of different international students in the MSW program before you even start your classes. start to build those connections. But yeah, we really encourage you to get to know other students, start to form friendships. These can be really lifelong friendships. It can be a really helpful support as you navigate the program, as you navigate different assignments, if you're having certain experiences in classes, or if you just want to go around Ann Arbor and explore the area. So really encourage you to not be shy. Everyone's starting the program from scratch. Most people who are coming don't already have pre-existing friendships. So everyone wants to make friends. So don't be afraid to reach out and go to social events. Another thing is don't be afraid to reach out to faculty as well as different offices within the School of Social Work, and be proactive, self-direct your learning, and take advantage of the opportunities that are available. So the kind of the academic culture here, especially in the School of Social Work, the professors are really open to you reaching out, emailing them, visiting their office hours, talking about your interests, asking questions about their experiences, asking questions about different opportunities. And there are a lot of different opportunities within the School of Social Work that you can take independent studies. You can do a lot of things that can help you self-direct your learning and make the most out of your experience at the School of Social Work. So we really encourage you to really be proactive. That's something that's really welcome here. I know it's different in a lot of countries and sometimes it's difficult to adjust, but you're really encouraged to kind of lead your own learning here and take advantage of the opportunities that are presented. Another tip is be prepared to gain a lot of understanding of the American context and policies in the US. So this is an MSW program in a US institution. So you are going to learn a lot about US-based policies, US-based issues. So we would encourage you to kind of be prepared for that and be aware of that before you step in. If you want to do some reading ahead of time, if you want to look through the Canvas course that Katie mentioned, these can be really helpful tools to kind of set you up for success once you get here. But also keep in mind that most, if not all, faculty members really encourage international students to also speak about their own countries and what things are like. Comparative studies are really important. They help us see what other places are doing right, how we could learn from that. So don't be afraid to also share about your own context and about your own experiences. Be open to learning about new cultures, whether that's cultures within the US or whether that's cultures of other international students. It can be a really enriching experience. And you might not have another opportunity to be in a context that has so many different people from so many different places. So really take advantage of that. One thing to note is that you're probably going to have more projects and papers than exams per se, which might be different from your undergrad experience. So be prepared for a lot of writing, group work, presentations, and also a lot of in-class discussions. So these are all things that are really encouraged in the School of Social Work because it is preparing you to really work in the field, which is why you will have to do a lot of projects and papers and presentations, which is really, I find at least really interesting and enriching. And then the last thing is culture shock is real, but we are here for you. It is difficult or it can be difficult to come to a brand new context where things are different. And like we said, you might not have your already established support network, but there are a ton of resources for you to be able to kind of deal with that. So you can reach out to your academic advisors, you can talk to the International Center, you can reach out to the counseling and psychological services, different offices within the School of Social Work or the school more broadly, to the OGA. We put on events for international students like coffee hour where they can connect and talk about their experiences. And there's also linked in the slide kind of like a mini guide that was put together that kind of talks about culture shock and some ways that you can kind of fight against it. So that might be interesting for you to look at even before you come, just so that you can prepare for yourself for what you might experience. And it might be a helpful resource after you've already arrived if you start to experience some of these things. And then, so we are planning on putting together a communication platform, kind of like a group chat for international students once you start to arrive to campus. So we're going to be using GroupMe when we do that. You are going to be using GroupMe more generally. That kind of tends to be the platform that there is the group for the entire cohort and so on. or certain group chats for group projects usually tend to happen on GroupMe. So GroupMe might not be available where you are right now, but once you come to the US, you will be able to access it, especially when you get your US phone number. So once you are here, we will give you more information about how to join this group chat, probably in the international student orientation, and we'll provide that information so that everyone will be able to join and connect with each other. And then if we can go to the next slide, please. The OGA also has a really cool program that we have done in the past and we're planning on doing again in the fall semester. It's called the Global Partner Program. And it's basically kind of like a peer mentor buddy program where incoming international students can be paired either with an incoming domestic student, a second year US student, or a second year international student. And that's a way for you to kind of have someone who is experiencing some of the same, has experienced or is experiencing some of the same things that you're going through. It can either be an international student who might be able to relate more to some of the things that are specifically related to being an international student, or it can be a US student who may know more about the US context or maybe more familiar with things if you want to ask some of those questions. So this is a one semester voluntary program. You don't have to sign up for it, but we highly encourage that you do. I signed up for GPP in my first semester and it was a great way to start to meet people and to have someone that I could talk to, who I knew was interested in being there for me. And who I could also be there for. So it's a two-way thing. So we're going to be giving you more information about how to sign up for that over the summer. So stay tuned for some emails about that, but we highly encourage you to participate in it. And now we would love to meet all of you. So we've been going on for a while. We hope this was helpful, but we'd love to meet some of you. So if you're comfortable with that, we're gonna have a Q&A portion right after these introductions. But if you're comfortable, we would love for you to either just unmute or unmute and start your video if you can and are in a location where you can do that. Just to briefly introduce yourself, your name, your gender pronouns, if you'd like to share them, your country of citizenship, and then you can answer either one of those questions. So what is one hobby or interest that you have, or what is one volunteer or work experience that prepared you for social work or motivated you to engage in social work? So you can take a couple minutes and think about that. We don't want to put anyone on the spot, but you're all welcome to introduce yourselves. We'd love to see you or hear you.
It's good practice. You'll get to do this in almost every one of your classes each semester. There's always some time spent getting to know folks. So, yeah.
I can start off if you guys want. Nice to meet you guys, and thank you so much for putting this together for us. My name is Graham Hewson. My gender pronouns are he, him. I'm currently in Toronto, Canada right now. So if you guys want to visit at any time this summer, you're more than welcome. I can tour you around. I would say one volunteer work experience that has prepared me for social work is I'm currently working at Meals on Wheels at the moment. So working with aging populations, immigrant populations as well in Toronto. So that's been some great experiences and sort of showed me the shortcomings of smaller social service agencies and really sort of grew my interest in policy and things like that. And I'm also volunteering at Kids Help Phone as well as a crisis responder twice a week. So that's really opened my eyes to the mental health field and how needed of a service it is. So yeah, those are just some of the experience that has really intrigued me and got me excited for moving into social work in the future.
Great, nice to meet you. Thanks so much.
No worries, great to meet you guys as well.
Don't be shy.
So I can be the second. My name is Shi Liu and my gender pronouns is she, her. And I'm from China, but like currently I'm in Arizona right now. And I think one work experience is that because I'm a psychology major right now, so I used to work, like took an internship in a hospital. So I think that maybe works.
I hope you're staying cool in Arizona. Introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Hello,
We can hear
can
you great.
you hear
Yep.
me?
Mhm.
My name is Akisato from Japan, and I have 9 experience as a consultant in an IT services company in Tokyo, Japan, and I am going to and also my gender pronouns is she or her, and actually I'm going to join pathway in older adults and their families. And I'm especially interested in clinical social work and cancer support because my mother passed away from rare cancer several years ago. So that's why I made decisions as my career change. So yeah, and regarding my volunteer experience is that I volunteered at an NPO in Japan, and I supported single mothers and children. So yeah, I hope this experience will help. So nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing. So at this point too, we'll obviously welcome more people to introduce themselves, but if you have questions, feel free to ask those or put those in the chat box as well. So happy to continue with introductions and questions based on what's most helpful for everyone.
I just have a quick question about research positions or on-campus work. So, for example, say if we've missed the deadlines for certain scholarships or grants, is there a department that we can reach out to? Because I know through research that there's potentially, you know, on-campus work or on-campus research positions you can help out with. So I was wondering what would be the best department or faculty to reach out to for that.
I can answer this. So in terms of on-campus work, one thing to keep in mind is that as an international student, depending on, because we are on an F1 or J1 visa, you are allowed to work on campus, but you are only allowed to work for 20 hours on campus. While you are currently enrolled in classes. So if you're in the 20-month program, for example, and you don't have classes in the summer, but you are technically still a student at U of M, in the summer or in a semester that you are not actively enrolled in classes, you can work up to 40 hours, but while you are taking classes, you can work up to 20 hours on campus. Now, in terms of reaching out to a specific department or faculty member, for faculty members, I would really encourage you to look through some of the faculty web pages. So the School of Social Work lists all of the faculty members, and they each have their own like mini bio that talks about their research interests, and sometimes it talks about what projects they're currently working on. So if you find a faculty member that you think your research interests align with well, I really encourage you to reach out to them directly, send them an email, tell them like, hi, I'm an incoming student at School of Social Work. I looked through your bio. I thought your research was really interesting. I would appreciate like an opportunity to talk to you and to see if there's an opportunity to work with you, engage in your research. You can specify if you want a specifically paid position, or if you are just really interested in their research and want to engage anyway, you can ask about what they have available. So that's one option. Another option is that there is a web page on the U of M website that lists kind of graduate student positions. So there aren't any graduate student instructor or graduate student research assistants within the School of Social Work for MSW students. Those are really reserved for PhD students, but you can still serve as a GSI in another department. If, for example, let's say you did your undergrad in, let's say, psychology, and there are GSI appointments in the Department of Psychology, you can apply to those. So that's another way for you to find on-campus employment. Those usually cover your tuition and give you a stipend and health insurance. So those are cool positions to look into. And then there's also a page on the U of M website, which I'll try to look for after answering this question, that lists different temporary employment opportunities for students. Some of those are research positions, some of those are, for example, work at the library, and they kind of list things across different departments. So that would be another place to look for paid on-campus positions. So I'll try to look for that and send it in the chat. If I can't find it within the span of the webinar, then we'll try to include it in maybe the email that we send out afterwards. So those are all different ways that you can find on-campus employment. Just a note that even though you are authorized to work on campus, you do just have to submit a small amount of paperwork before you start any position. So that's also something to keep in mind. Like, don't just reach out to a faculty, set up a research position and start doing it. Reach out to the International Center, ask some information about what you need to submit, just so that you make sure that you stay on top of your legal status here.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that.
And I would say always the Office of Student Services is a great place to reach out to if you have general questions. So they may have some additional ideas or places to direct you to.
Hi, I also have a quick question for the scholarship, because when I was applying for this university, I didn't see the option of the merit-based scholarship, so I didn't apply for it. So I was wondering, like, if I can maybe apply for it right now.
Yeah, so on the MSW application, there's two different checkboxes. I think one is for need-based aid, and that one, as Sadia explained, international students aren't eligible for, but merit-based was an option. So if you missed that box or weren't, didn't complete that as part of your application, I would suggest you reach out to the Office of Student Services and ask them if you can still be considered for that. So either Kaylee or Sadia, can one of you put the Office of Student Services email address in the inbox? I would just make sure to note that you're a current accepted student coming in this fall and wanted to find out about applying for the merit-based aid. You might have done it and just not realized you did it or forgotten, because you literally check a box that says merit-based aid. There's nothing else that you fill out. It's not like you're writing a statement or anything else. So you may have already filled it out and just forgotten, but it's no problem to also check and make sure that that's the case.
I see. Thank you so much. So sorry, I have one more question. So if I was like, if I was choosing that like form for the merit-based scholarship, like when can I receive maybe a notification for the scholarship?
Yeah, so it would be sent to you. You would receive a financial aid offer letter that outlines what type of aid has been provided to you. Again, I would just suggest reaching out to the Office of Student Services to ask about that. I think most students are interested in some type of scholarship, whether it's merit or need-based. It doesn't mean every student is granted those opportunities based on the funding that's available, but it never hurts to ask. So definitely would suggest that you write to them and ask about that. One of the things that is a priority for the school is the school really has focused a lot of the financial aid that they have is need-based and looking at kind of social equity and trying to include more folks in the program that otherwise couldn't be in it. So we do have some merit-based aid, but the bulk of our aid is need-based based on kind of the priorities of students and faculty as they inform the financial aid department about how to prioritize handing out those funds.
Yeah, I think one thing to note is that usually you get a statement about your financial aid, whether you got it or not, if you applied. So if you applied but weren't awarded anything, you would have also received a letter from the school saying that unfortunately you haven't been awarded aid. So if you haven't gotten that, even though you got your acceptance a while ago, then you probably didn't apply. So if in that case, we'd really encourage you to reach out to OSS and check if you can still apply at this point.
I see. Thank you so much. I think I didn't apply. I will reach out. Thank you.
I'm not able to hear. Is everyone else able to hear? I can see your videos on and I can see you're unmuted.
We still can't hear you.
Yeah, if you'd like to type it into the chat or try to reconnect your audio, that might help.
No worries, it happens. If other folks want to introduce themselves either via the chat or through the audio function or have questions, please feel free to jump in now. Don't be shy if you have a question. Someone else may be wondering it as well. You're also, welcome to communicate with us directly through email. So I think earlier Kaylee put in the box the Office of Global Activities email address. If we're not able to answer your question, we'll go out and look up the answer, or we'll reach out to some of the other offices or connect you with other folks that can. But our Office of Global Activities is here both to support incoming international students and visiting scholars and exchange students, and also supporting students and having international experiences outside of the US as part of their MSW program. And so we really hope to be a resource for all of you. We're lucky to have Sadia, a current international student who's working with us for the year. And so she'll be facilitating some different events throughout the year. We have a bi-weekly coffee hour that we do, and we can set up, some of those we'll just have as social space to just for folks to chat, and others we'll have with a specific topic or guest speaker. And so, if there's something that you're wondering about or want to hear more about, we're really happy to hear from you and try and incorporate that into some of our offerings. Wow, national level 2 badminton player. That's amazing. Our central recreational building has time open at different points where there are folks that are playing badminton. So there's a track that runs around it, and sometimes I use the track and see all the folks below playing badminton. So hopefully you can connect in with a network of other folks. So Sadia, do you want to take that question about part-time jobs?
So is there something specific that you want to know about part-time jobs, or is it just about the experience of working part-time at the university more generally?
And I would just add generally that many of our students have some type of additional part-time obligation through, a work position that might be on campus related to research or a course, or potentially off-campus employment. I think it can be a challenge to balance, particularly in a semester where you have coursework, field, and a job. And so I think it's important to think about how flexible is the job that you're applying for, how will that fit in with your obligations for your field placement and your classwork, but also knowing that many students do end up with some type of job as in addition to their coursework and their field work.
Yeah, so in terms of finding a part-time job related to your major, so I think Katie already dropped in the chat the student employment link. So that's a place where you can find a lot of job postings on campus in different departments that might be related to an area of interest for you. So they might not be specifically within the School of Social Work, but they might still be relevant to what you're interested in doing. So let's say you are in the IP pathway and there's a research position in the Department of Psychology, for example, that is about a certain modality of treatment that you're interested in. That could be a good option for you. if you're in the policy pathway, for example, then you might be interested in some positions or working with faculty members who are in the Ford School of Public Policy. So it doesn't necessarily have to be within the School of Social Work to be related to an aspect of social work that you're interested in. So that's why I would encourage you to look through all of that and not limit your search to the School of Social Work specifically. Knowing that there are also job openings within the School of Social Work. So I'm currently working with the OGA, so that's an office within the School of Social Work that works on a bunch of things, as Katie mentioned, related to visiting scholars, incoming international students, international opportunities for students to do global social work related, to have global social work related experiences. There are also sometimes positions that open with the Office of Student Services related to kind of facilitating some events for students or incoming students. So you can have opportunities within the School of Social Work to engage in part-time work. If you are interested in research, then you can, as we mentioned, like reach out directly to faculty or check for some of those postings online. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can find part-time work. Also, usually when there's a position open in the School of Social Work, there's usually an email that's sent out to everyone in the MSW program, kind of informing everyone that applications are open, if it is open to everyone. So that's the way that you can stay in the loop and know about what's happening. There's also kind of an online platform that you will learn about during Seed Week, where people from the School of Social Work can post about things. And sometimes some people post about like short-term, part-time employment opportunities there, so you can stay tuned for that. So for example, let's say a faculty member has an ongoing project and they want to hire students temporarily to like do interviews with study participants, for example. That's a place that they sometimes post about that and mention that that's happening. That's another place that you can stay in the loop about things that are happening in the School of Social Work more generally, but also job postings. But yeah, as Katie mentioned, for me and my experience, like it's been great working at the OGA because it is pretty flexible. So when I have courses and field and work, it's really great to have a part-time job that offers flexibility, so that I'm not necessarily feeling overburdened or overwhelmed. But once you get here and you kind of see how you're doing in your courses, and once you start field and you see kind of how that works and what your agency's requirements are, then you have a better idea of what you feel that you can do. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. If you have any other question about this, please feel free to leave it in the chat, or if you think of other questions after the webinar is over, then you're welcome to email us too.
Yeah, and I would just add that I think it can be challenging for any incoming student to find that type of job that's very specific to what you're studying in before they're on campus. So often opportunities come available once you start to get to know faculty and people. So sometimes in the first semester, it's challenging to obtain that type of position or that direct connection, but just thinking about, you may have the ability to build those networks and connections over time in the program. And maybe it's in your second or third semester that you're able to get a position that's very relevant to kind of what your interests are. So I would say that, you know, as an incoming student, I think everyone's kind of interested in this, and without knowing the landscape, it can be a little bit harder to navigate. But a lot of those opportunities do come up through networking and through the connections that you'll build while you're on campus. All right, looks like we've got tennis and badminton players here, so great to meet you. So we do plan to stay on for another 11 minutes or so if folks have questions or haven't introduced themselves yet. We look forward to meeting you. It will be Kaylee and Sadia that are running our International Student Orientation on August 22nd with some support from our Office of Student Services as well. But we're really looking forward to that opportunity to get to meet students in person. We typically have a panel of current international students that will speak to you about their experience We do that in a setting where the rest of us, the staff and faculty, leave the room. And so it's just international students really asking each other questions. So I think that's typically a highlight of the orientation. And I think we're also thinking about having some optional social activities for afterwards. So there'll be lots of information and folks that you'll be hearing from during the orientation, and providing you with some resources for where to go to. But we also want to create community between, you know, all of you as the international student cohort coming in. Wow, we've got lots of sports enthusiasts doing different sports and events. So it's great to know about those hobbies as well. Sadia, I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you, but do you remember? I think there were about just under 20 incoming international students this year. Is that right?
I think so far there are about 22 actually incoming international students, but we expect that number to change because sometimes people change their mind or something comes up and they defer. So far it's 22, so that's really great. It's a pretty big cohort. So we'd love to see you all at the social events that we end up putting on. I think it would be great for everyone to be able to meet in person and to start to form those connections early on.
And your cohort was a bit smaller than that. Were you around?
Yeah, I think ours was around 14.
Okay.
And I think one of the 14 is in the online program. So it was, I think, 13 that are actually on campus.
So it'll be a good cohort between the first and second year. Sometimes we as few as, you know, even 6 or 8 students since I started in the program, but our international student cohorts have been getting bigger and also more diverse in terms of where folks are coming from. So that's great. Yeah, great question. So changing your pathway is possible. So on your application, you indicated which pathway you were interested in. If you are a 60 credit student, so in the 16-month or the 20-month program, your official pathway distinction can be changed at any point up until when you apply for field. So your field placement has to match your pathway selection. And the applications for field for students that will start in January for field, so 16 and 20-month students, is due in mid-October. And at that point, you would want to make sure that if what you selected on your application, you've changed your mind. You thought you wanted to do policy and evaluation, and now you've decided you want to, or policy and political, and now you've decided you want to do management. There is a form that you can fill out to make that pathway change. And it's actually, our curriculum is designed, this is a newer function of our redesigned curriculum that gives students the option to explore during that first semester when you're taking the foundation or essential coursework, because we know sometimes it's hard to know which program is the best fit or which pathway is the best fit before you've had any kind of experience in social work and taken the classes. So once you do start field, it becomes a different process if you want to change your pathway, because we do have to make sure that your field placement is aligned with your pathway selection. That doesn't mean it isn't possible after that point, but it does mean that there, in addition to just kind of being approved academically, the field office needs to be involved in that conversation to make sure your field placement can meet that. And it looks like Sadia has included the link for changing your pathway. So I think if you're considering changing and you know for sure you want to change now, you could go ahead and fill out that form. But if you are a 16 or 20-month student, you can also wait up until mid-October, and the curriculum is actually designed in that way for you to have some connection with the various pathways and learn more about the types of social work before you have to kind of finalize that selection. So great question. course, happy to help.
Regarding field application, I have a question.
Yeah.
I will join in 16 months program, so I will expect my field placement start from January. So the deadline, the application deadline will be September. Is it correct?
Typically in mid-October is the timeline that it is. I don't know that they've set it at this point, but it's typically in October. So right now, the field office, if you are an advanced standing student who has a BSW, you're in the master track program or some of the other special programs, a group of students applied for field in May, and the field office is working on placing those students that need to start field in their first term in September. So once they get those students situated, which most of them will be all set up and ready to go by the end of August, then they switch over to working on the 16-month and the 20-month students that will start field in January. So your group is the bigger group in terms of there are percentage-wise, there are more students that start field in January. So I think as Sadia mentioned, it's really important that you submit your field application and materials on time so that you're in the first batch of folks as they're starting to place students. And it's also important to know that there will be over 200 some students applying for field. The field team is about 7 field faculty that are doing the placing. So as you can imagine, they're each placing around 30 students. So I think everyone would love to be placed within the first month, but it does take a little while. And so definitely, be patient as the field office is going through that process. The majority of students will be set up in place to start in early January when the semester starts. But if you haven't heard or aren't placed by the end of October, please don't panic. It takes the field office a while to navigate with the different field agencies. So you'll receive more information from that about applying. One of the things that some students like to do is have the Career Services Office. We have a writing coach that can help review your resume and goal statement in advance. And so if you'd like your statement reviewed, just making sure that you're planning even a little bit more ahead of time, because there's one person that does that, the writing services. And so if you submit yours, Friday or the evening before the application is due, she's probably not going to be able to get back to you by the application deadline. So if you are interested, it's not required, but if you would like your resume and field statement reviewed, then planning ahead a little bit more so that there's enough time for the writing team to review that and provide some feedback to you.
Yeah, I'm interested in the review of my application, so I will reach out to your office. Thank you.
Yep.
And I have one more question. It's a different topic,
Yep.
and I received email about payment plan, about the payment plan of my tuition. So, but there is no instructions about deadline. So, if you know about when I should apply for the payment plan, if I would like to divide my payments.
Yeah, I think I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head, so that may be something we need to look into and get back to you about. So the payment plan, students can pay their tuition at one time. The tuition is due at a certain point and you'd pay the entire amount for the semester, but there's also an option where there's a payment plan. So there's a little bit of a fee to do that, but it allows you to, for instance, break up your payment over 2 or 4 kind of different installments of it. So just in case others weren't familiar with that information, we can look into that and see if we can get you some more information about who to contact in our Office of Financial Aid. It's not something that's run directly through the school. It's something that's available to all students across U of M. So we'll need to, unless Sadia or Kaylee know something I don't, I think we probably need to look into get an answer to that question.
Thank you.
Any last question or introduction before we sign off for this evening? All right, well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We will follow up, so I imagine could be later this week, might be early next week. We'll get the recording put together. We'll have the slides to send out to you. And we'll also invite you to the Canvas course that we talked about that provides some more context about social work in the US as something that you might wanna be reviewing before you come in. All of that being said, please don't be shy, don't be hesitant, reach out to us. If you have a question and it's not most appropriate for our office, we're happy to connect you with colleagues in other departments or offices that can help you. You've got the office's general email address. I think maybe Sadia sent some messages to you all as well. So, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We really are looking forward to all of you coming. We hope many of you will, be part of our biweekly coffee hour events or the Global Partners Program, which are some of the ways that our office gets to engage with international students. But congratulations again on being accepted, and whatever your transition is, if it's from halfway around the world, from Arizona, from a couple hours away in Toronto, we're looking forward to having you in Ann Arbor. And thank you so much, Sadia and Kaylee, for the work you did in putting these slides together and presenting this morning.